could any game make $1,000 in gross revenue?
I'm nervous having this conversation. This is the moment.
Hey there, this is a podcast about game development where we figure out what it takes to be a successful indie dev. I'm Connor, and I'm joined by professional min-maxer and my co-host Corey. How you doing, Corey?
We're starting. We're doing this.
We're back again.
We're changing
for
everything.
Another week. We're here to talk. Anything new on your side?
Episode 2. Game releases. I am hunkering down and trying to finish the 3 games for August 27th, and I'm feeling the pressure.
Good. I think it's pretty natural, and like if someone of your caliber is feeling that, you know, I can only imagine how the rest of us would feel in that same situation, having 3 games coming out at the same time.
Don't release 3 games at the same time is the secret.
That's the lesson.
Secret.
That's the lesson learned. All right, we can end the episode. We're done. That's it. Thanks for joining.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
We have lots of things to do today, but first off, I want to call attention to Morgan. I got a new headset. There's no distracting mics on either side now, so just for you. You asked, and you shall get it. But into the first topic that I actually have is I wanted to do something a little bit interesting to get your thoughts on the state of Steam, and I thought, what better way to do this than to look at the personal calendar? And this is actually my personal calendar, so you could see there's some games listed on here. I think some of these were ones that I saw in Next Fest and wanted to keep an eye on. And for those of you who are watching, if you wanted to see more of what I'm checking out, if you go up to this game count, set it to 500, and then wishlisted games show all of this, you could set that. And then you can hide, own games and things like that too. But if we scroll down, this is the upcoming week of August 3rd. I want to ask you, Corey, the first question is, if you were going to look at any of these games in this week, first off, do you know of any of them? Are any of them popping out that you're like, oh yeah, this one is going to do well, I just know it? Anything we should be on the lookout for?
No, I mean, there's a couple of capsules there that look interesting.
Okay. Iron Nest, I know, is one. This is the one that I think won
actually,
Next Fest.
I do know of this.
Yeah. Okay, so we suspect that this one will be a really well done game, and that it's probably going to have a good release, or at least a lot of eyes on it, right?
I think all these games will probably do all right. I mean, they're showing up on your personal calendar, so
that's true.
That's already a bar. But Iron Nest is good to obviously print money because it just has such a huge following. I don't even remember the numbers, but it's like over, I think, 300,000 wish list right now for that game. So as long as they deliver, they will do fine. But the rest of these games are interesting on the capsules.
Yeah.
Like the Mazy Village there and Demon Lord. Demon Lord. Yeah, or Re-Night. These are ones that capsule-wise catch my eyes. I don't know. Like we hover over and it's like, oh, different types of games and things like that. But
yeah, let's start with let's just look at Mazy Village. Like what are you noticing about the capsule that you're like, yeah, this one is it?
It's just this like Lego Kitty cozy vibe to me, and it's like, oh, it's not gonna be a serious game. It's probably gonna be a pretty chill game. It could be something like building your village where you place everything, and yeah, I think those games do pretty well on Steam. And which is actually way different than I thought. All ripperoni puzzle game.
I feel like
maybe it does better than I thought, but Cozy Town Restoring Adventure, interesting. Not what I expected at all.
I feel like I've seen a short on this one or something before. Like this is not the first time I'm seeing it, or maybe I had seen it in Steam Next Fest as well, and we're just kind of getting those waves of Steam Next Fest games that are coming through. But I mean, it looks kind of like Animal Crossing meets Pokopia, kind of that vibe. But I don't know anything more about it than what we're seeing here.
I don't know. I mean, I'm shocked because it looks very mobile like art style to it, and then it's a puzzle game. Well, they're probably gonna say exploration game, I think is what they take it as, and that's how I would convey it than puzzle, because puzzle, a lot of people are just gonna probably click away.
Yeah. So if you're gonna pick one game, what would be the one game that you think, aside from Iron Nest? All right, we both think Iron Nest is gonna do well, but if you're gonna pick one game, what's your pick for the week?
Probably the Re-Night, I think, is when I saw you just briefly hover over it. I'm like, it looks roguelike. It looks like there's some sort of building mechanic, deck building, something like this, character building. I'm like, these games typically do pretty well on Steam. Um,
For my pick, I think I'm going for Restory Chill Electronics Repair. I think that there's something in this one of just repairing electronics, cleaning them up, and it's a sim game. So, I think there might be something to this one. But
I didn't even notice the capsule. I know this game. It's
you?
gonna do well.
Okay,
Yeah.
I picked well.
See what the illusion of the calendar does? Like the bigger capsules is just what I focused on.
Totally.
So
Totally.
it's a question of like, is that game just not have as many wish lists, or is it a combination of just not matching your preference, or there's just so many games releasing that match your preference on a day that they all get squashed?
Yeah.
All
All
it's a
good
very
questions.
interesting mechanic.
Mm-hmm. And we don't know anything about this, right? Like we don't know why Tuesday has more or fewer, right? It's just seemingly random.
Um, I kind of found some like if you decrease the numbers from 500 to like 250, you don't fill out every day actually. Or whatever it is, 100 even is probably, I think the default's 100. You will actually have days that have blanks, or I do at least, which is surprising to me that Steam would do this because I thought it would be a dual weighted system where they try and fill every calendar slot regardless of the ranking related to you. What it actually looks like, it's pretty much like order by score to Connor descending, the highest scores, and they just fill in the calendar.
Yeah.
Or if they do groupings, like you match a certain subset of player profile, like Steam has it big enough where they don't need to match exactly to Connor as a player. They know that Connor is 98% like these types of players. And that bucket of players, they only have to generate out the listing once then. And then your other filters would just remove like EA or already owned and things like that. That would be the easier computational thing to do than to literally generate one per user, which is plausible, but again, you just have to have the system to be able to do it. And I guess they could do it behind the scenes every night, run this. They don't do it in real time. So this doesn't like, they just do it by weekly roll. So, and it looks like it doesn't update until the next day too.
Right. Right. I had heard. I think I was listening to Butterscotch Shenanigans this week, and they were saying something along the lines of like Sunday or something like that is when it rolls over to the next week.
Yeah, so the Sunday you get the next week, so obviously it has to populate it the next week. But if you only update this once a day, even if there's new games that have more wish list or would be quote unquote better matching to you, if you only update once a day, you can actually just do this as a process background. You don't have to worry as much. If it was truly real time, like a YouTube recommendation feed, then you start getting into issues of like, yeah, but that means I need to real time reiterate every single user that's logging into Steam to be able to repopulate this. And you just get into some computational problems.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know I've compared with some friends where we have like similar games. But I think, from the smaller dev standpoint, I really like just putting it at 500. I mean, it's such a big difference too, because as we went from like 10 games next week to all of these different games, different sizes, like Iron Nest wasn't even on there. And I think it just goes to show like how many games are coming out. And this isn't even probably all the games coming out. But two, for me, I just like seeing what capsules are doing. And so like taking a note, like I know on YouTube right now, doing like little border meta is pretty strong. And it seems like the same thing here where this one stands out. It has that orange border around it. Or like a lot of characters or different art styles or the way that the logos are presented. And so for me, I can ingest this and say, okay, what do I need to think about for my capsules? What's popular? What are the common themes? And how can I start to align my taste and my critical eye toward what these capsules look like? And then, of course, you can just like quickly go over and like look at some of these different descriptions and see what they're doing. But generally, I think that the thumbnail is going to become more and more, or capsule is going to become more and more important. And so, like, at least understanding and having that sense of what pops out is going to be helpful for everybody, because it's just going to be more of this moving forward, I think, for many of Steam's widgets, or at least we assume that it's going to be the case.
You have to remember, we started on the counter, but really you'd start on the homepage, and then a subset of the homepage is the calendar, which is what's happening this week. Which again is just capsules, and that gets you to hover, and then that's going to give you the trailer and description and things like that. So we're very visual buying, and this is why, again, I repeat to people, it's like the game you build, the game doesn't die with people playing in it. It dies before that. Like if you can't get people to hover, then it's probably not good to use it well. If it doesn't convey what it's doing, it's great to have an uphill battle. Um, so there's something to be said. More and more, I'm talking to creators or game devs who are taking the approach: don't even build the game. You build what the game could be. Basically, like in the startup world, we call it like a proof of concept, or even just a landing page to get people in, to give you the email to the mailing list. And then if you get enough, you build the service.
Okay.
Kind of like the same thing with the game. It's like, okay, you build, the dev from Uncanny Valley didn't build a game. He built an animation of what the game could be, all animated, no game mechanics, and then use that to do shorts and build a Steam page based off the trailer that he made. Just the trailer, it wasn't the game. He animated the whole thing, and then got the wish list, used that to trade up visibility with IGN to get featured, and now he's building the game. And it's a cycle to do that is much usually shorter than building out a whole game and iterating.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Well, we're going to move on from this, but keep an eye out for our picks. Maybe we'll revisit and see how our games did week to week, and look forward to next week when we get another pick. But we actually have a main topic today, and this came after you and I had been talking after recording the last episode, and we were just kind of sitting in the call for a little bit, and you had made the comment of fun games versus satisfying games, and I think you had identified them as being distinctly different, but can you kind of jog my memory about what were we talking about and what was on your mind at that moment? I think there was even a particular game that you were thinking of as an example.
Sure. So I haven't fully ironed this out. Like I don't have a very clear definition exactly of this is this. The way I would describe it is, you go to clean your house. Very few people I know would say that's a fun task. But what they will say is they get satisfaction when it's done. And that's a very satisfying task when it's completed, or there's some satisfaction in the work of seeing it get accomplished. And what I've seen more and more recently is these games I would classify as satisfying games. They can be fun, but I would first put them as satisfying. So this is like Librarian is one of them. It's a game you go around, you're in a library that's a disaster, all the books have fallen down. You have to go find all the books that match and organize the library. Supermarket Chaos is another one, a grocery store. Everything's fallen. You must organize the grocery store. And I have played both of these, and I don't find myself ever saying it's a fun game. I feel like it's a compulsion to finish the game for the satisfaction of it being organized and clean. And this is very different for me because most of the games I've not ever had this. Maybe subsets, like I don't know, if you play like World of Warcraft, I found that a very fun game. There was a satisfaction of like completing a quest in the game or progression of towards gear or something like this. It's satisfying having a full set from like a dungeon or something like this. But I would still say those are foremost to me a fun game. The satisfaction is secondary. I'm seeing the flip of some games that fun is optional or fun is not the first thing. It's actually the satisfying aspect of the game is right at the front.
Yeah. And I know that, oftentimes when we talk about these different topics in game dev, some of the comments that I hear are, well, it's not like a spectrum, right? It's like fun and satisfying are on opposite ends. Likely they're probably attributes of a different game. So I think what you're saying is that when we think of games, we often think of it as like fun should be to the max, push it forward, and then you don't really think about how satisfying it is. But if we were to put this on some kind of radar chart and we were like, hey, what is the stat level of all these different things? What you're saying is that some of these games, they don't have as high of a fun stat, but because they have such a high satisfaction stat, that it leads to someone feeling like, it's not really like, I don't know if it's an emotion or like, but it's a feeling, right? Of just like, oh, this just feels good to play. And I want to like finish it. I want to clean this room. I want to like finish the tasks at hand. Like there's something unfinished and I need to finish it. Is that like kind of where you're getting at?
Yes, but if we went with like the radar, I'd actually say these are two different radars.
Interesting.
Because having played Supermarket Chaos, I rage quit the game at one point because I was like, it uses dark patterns. I swear it uses dark patterns to keep me in the game. And the UI was terrible in some of the progression stuff that you unlock. It doesn't really teach you it. And I'm just like, okay, you know what? I'm done with this game. I had to I had refunded the game. Okay, I had to rebuy the game like 2 days later out of compulsion of finishing. I had to finish. And I have not had this in a fun game. And I think the way you design these are slightly different because in a fun game, I think you're much more unwilling to put up with like a poor onboarding experience. And here was a game that I honestly think when I got in, it did not tell me that escape opens up the skill tree at all. And Twitch chat told me, I would have played the game 30, 40 minutes probably without even realizing this and been super confused. I'm pretty sure to this day I did not miss a tooltip because I had to replay the game a second time when I reinstalled it from being tilted. And in a fun game, I think like if I had played an incremental game and I never found the skill tree, I would have left immediately because I wouldn't have felt compelled to play the game. But this different design of this type of game, the radar shifts of like what you can get away with and what you can't get away with. And that's why I'd actually say I think they are two distinctly different games that you build. And it's not like, oh, satisfying and fun are just each in the same radar, and you're just playing with like how far out or how much they come in that centerpiece. I think they're actually two different, if we say radars here, two different ways of designing a game. Now, sometimes I think the goal is to design a game that's both, but I think you can design them solo. Like I've definitely played games that are fun that I would never describe as satisfying. And I've played this game, Supermarket Chaos. I would not describe it as a fun game at all. It's a compulsion to finish the game to get the satisfaction of it being organized, clean, and completed. If that makes any sense. Maybe I'm like the edge case here of players, and everyone else is like, no, I played that game. It was super fun, but I did not have any fun at all.
So for you, you're definitely feeling something about it. And I guess, so when you're getting into these types of games, my question would be, is it clear, like, when do you know that you have a satisfying game? Or at least the ones that do it well will say, how do you know that it's a satisfying game? Like, at what point? Is it when you're in the game, you see the onboarding? Is there something that's signaled? Or is it like from the capsule description, you just kind of know what kind of game it would be? Because if this is true and they are separate types of games, you wouldn't expect to have fun in it right away, right? And so, like, how does that work? Like, do you just know what you're getting into?
I'm nervous having this conversation. This is the moment. Last time I said it's a hot take. This is the hot take, guys. Because before I answer that, I'm just going to give a little tiny story. I had a satisfying prototype before starting these 3 games I'm working on. And I told Andy, I'm too scared to make these games. I don't think I could make this game yet. And this is one of the reasons, is how do you know it's a different game? And I also think the level of satisfaction has to be right on point to really get people in. The game I was working on was like cleaning dishes. And I had made a prototype, and it achieves it from like an incremental game standpoint. It works. There's a skill tree. You get a level of progression, all this stuff. And that could work as an incremental game. I actually thought about doing that. But from a satisfying point, I just was like, it doesn't feel good enough cleaning the plate. And then you have to convey that sense in a trailer that it's going to be a game that is satisfying once you play. And I only played Supermarket Chaos because someone told me they were going to make these types of games, and I was interested in understanding these types of games. I did not go through the normal consumer behavior of being on the landing page, buying this game, yada yada. I don't think I would. So is it a type of game that it doesn't appeal visually? It's a type of game you have to just play, and once you play, you're hooked. For me, it was. once I played 30 minutes, I was like, oh god, I can definitely see how these games like literally make you feel a compulsion to finish the game. That's the best way I can describe it. It's like it just hijacks everything in you having a sense of like I need to finish it. 2 days later, I rebought the game not because I was having fun. I just felt the necessity of completing this game.
Wow.
So it's powerful.
Yeah. So do you like have that interest in like making these games? Because it sounds like, you prototyped it, you kind of came to a decision, but what would be a reason for wanting to create one of those games? Is it just to do it? Do you think it's like more business driven? Like where for you, where does that instinct come from?
It's just this would have been after Black Hole. This would have been April, maybe May that I had done this. We were looking for the next game, and I played a game called Itchy Scratchy,
Yeah. Mhm.
which is an incremental game. But one of the things in that incremental game is you have to clean these plates to get money, and then you take over in this incremental fashion type of game. And I actually spotted myself later in that game going, I kind of like this dish cleaning mechanic. I actually look forward to it a little bit. And that's where it started clicking to me that, like, I think there's something here. This was before I knew about all these organizational games that came out where it's like cleaning up.
Yeah.
And that's where I just explored. And then I realized I think these games are like way, way harder to make. I think they deceivingly look very easy because it's like, oh, how hard can it be to have just clean a game or put up books on a shelf? But it's again, it's like I would describe incrementals. You with less things to have, it becomes harder and harder and harder. You can't hide behind game mechanics. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Supermarket Chaos is just pick up objects, put on shelf.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of having a similar thought. So I was playtesting Rollin' Ravioli by Spark Labs. Also, I believe the game you were thinking of is Scritchy Scratchy. I believe that's the one.
Yes.
So I want to make sure we get the name right. No worries. But I was playing Rollin' Ravioli and I was thinking like, the game is kind of similar where it's like you go through, it's like these platformer games and like that general genre. And I was like, there's not like a boost. There's not like artifacts and all these different things that, you see in roguelites and stuff. And so from a game design standpoint, it is really interesting to make those games because it almost forces you to think about, like, for a platformer, it's just all level design. How do you make these puzzles? How do you make it interesting? How do you keep it at a pace that feels challenging but rewarding? All these different things. It sounds like these satisfying games are in that same category. Is it's like, how do you make interacting with the game in itself just satisfying? There was another game that my friend linked to me that was just kind of like a UI sandbox, I guess. And each time, maybe it was you even, but no, I don't think it was you. But each time it's kind of like a clicker game, but you get a new widget, you do that thing, and it has like a new like fidget spinner toy kind of like mini game in it. And you do that thing and it unlocks the next one and unlocks the next one. And it's just purely sounds and visuals and UI interaction. There's really no mechanics to it. But it kind of sounds like that's all in the same category of like when you start to strip away some of these things, again, like loot boxes or RNG or leveling up and skill trees, and you just kind of get down to the pure interactions. Those games are really, really hard to make. But again, if you can be successful and like enter that space, I would imagine it leads to better game design and like kind of changes the way that you think about things, because then when you can go back and add on some of these other types of systems and mechanics, then now you have a lot more range to explore because you don't have to lean on, just like pumping it with screen shake or visual effects and things like that too. What do you think?
I agree. I think it's why I've recently just spent more time broadening the type of games I'm making too. Just in the sense of like, oh, maybe there's something I can pull from incremental games into this different genre. They don't have to be a cross-genre game, but just from a game design perspective of like, well, why wouldn't I just do this? Like, oh, if I have a game that could end here, but I know I could take a playbook from like an idle game and have a near infinite progression of just make it harder and harder and like give a an off-board spot for the player. Be like, you're basically done. You beat the game, and moving forward, this is more like the idle portion of the game. You can extend out your playtime. The player likes to leave it as a second screen thing. Then some of your players will just close at that point.
Sure.
But if you've only built a puzzle game, you're not going to think that way ever. How do you apply it over? I don't know. Maybe you have it like RNG puzzle on some subset. You have some way of going infinite score or higher score on the clear. It's not one way to solve it. It's n different ways. It's just. I just think there's something there that approaches game design different that I feel like I didn't see it as a gap in my own skill set until I started playing these, and I think you'd be very successful without doing this. But once I identified, hey, there's a gap, and I think these games are designed differently, and I think there would be advantage of me playing around in that space, even if I don't ship a successful game, but understanding what gets the player to really engage and feel this compulsion to finish the game that I could bring back on other game designs that are maybe more focused on these fun mechanics, if I call it that. It's like, okay, but if I strip the game down, could I get closer to this more satisfying sense of the feel? Or what is the core actions of the game? And maybe I should be quadrupling down on like making that be a standalone thing by itself, and then adding the rest of my game around it.
Mm-hmm,
so
that's really interesting. It just makes me feel like, I imagine this is true for a lot of developers, where you look at a game or you kind of look at these broad genres. You start from a genre that you want to make. And the normal way is you say, oh, I want to make this type of game. I want to pick some of these bigger pillars. And then you go in and say, this is the idea of how I expect my game to play. The way you're looking at, and I don't know if this is how you look at every single game, but the way you're describing it really more is individual systems and then going in, making it, and kind of diving more deeply into how it's making you feel, what is the purpose of it using, and almost looking at it like a tool. And then you can create an idea from there of a game that takes in different of these tools that you have worked with and say, okay, I know when to do this and to do that. Is that something that came to you naturally? Is that something that new devs should even consider doing? Or is that kind of more advanced once you get in the rhythm of just doing, like, making code, doing art, pulling in assets, and just, using a game engine or something like that? Like, when did you discover looking at games in that way?
I'm still discovering. I think it also just keeps me interested.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just this broad sense of the gaming and looking at different aspects of these games is just more interesting than doubling down all the time. Even
Sure.
though there is a side of my like business mind that's like, that's the worst thing you could say here. Once you've narrowed down into a skill, you should double down on that skill itself because you spent all this time understanding it, rinse and repeat. Like your what we call like fixed cost of goods.
Mm-hmm.
Like how much we have to do on each game should get shorter and shorter.
Right.
If you've already learned everything. Like making an incremental game, I've already learned a base of how to make those games. Switching to like entirely like roguelike game, there's a huge learning curve. But then the question is like, am I here to make one game? Am I here to make 10 games? I think there's advantage if I'm here to make a bunch of games of being like, okay, keep going across and taking the cost of learning the new ways because I can just build upon game 5, 6, 7, 8. Like my strategy, and maybe this is something that's a little controversial, is I've always said with Andy and I, or Stefan and I, or Thomas and I, 1 in 10 games. I model around 1 in 10. 1 in 10 of the games will actually be successful, like successful enough to pay for the other 9 out of 10 and return on the 10th. But if you go by that, it's like, okay, I'm already in for 10 games then.
Yeah.
I think it just changes what you think of how you want to approach game development. It's like, do I want to do 10 incremental games? Well, probably not, because to do 10 incremental games, even if I'm doing one every 3 months, it's like almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And will the market have shifted as well? And that's a risk in itself. Will the market have matured? Will there just be not as big a player base? Will the bar have changed? The quality, the type of games have changed? Will I've kept up? Or do I spend a piece of that time, 3 games in that genre, and say, okay, let's switch and take the cost of switching because I think I can take some lessons of that over to here that might not have been done or improve the quality of the games. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that 1 in 10. I think I've heard that too with like venture capitalist investing, where they just kind of expect investing in startups, it's going to be that 1 in 10. But then that, like you said, the one that succeeds is going to be overwhelmingly successful to the point where it's just going to be much more, we'll say profitable in this case to just do that approach. So instead of like, I'm trying to think like a good analogy for this. It's essentially just a slot machine of there's some percentage chance that you're going to be successful, and it's not distributed evenly where it's going to be the same amount of success. It's going to be, again, very overwhelmingly large success if you are confident in your skills and can, handle all these other things. So if you go just in one, the odds that you hit that one game, 1 in 10 we'll call it. So you might as well go with this approach where you're just putting more games out there because you never know what's going to hit, especially because the timing of everything is going to matter a lot too. And so instead of committing to these longer projects, taking that risk, keep going and just figure out where there's some traction and then double down once you get to that point, but don't lock into any given one thing. I mean, it just sounds fun to me as a development pattern because then you get to try different genres. You're not locked into one thing, and you don't feel like you have to, like, once you make the first game, you have to do a sequel, and then you have to make it a series, and you have to do an MMO, right? It's like, that just feels very stale, and like you lock into something where you look at someone like Sakurai, even himself, he's making all these different IPs, different games, and just finding new ways to play with different constraints, and it seems to have served him very well. And I think we respect him so much as a game producer and game designer because he has such a wide array of experience, and then he can work with different teams and such like that too, that he can go on and, other teams outside of the people he works with are like, hey, can we have you on this one? Can we have it on that one?
I actually stole it from the VC model.
Oh, there
that's
you go.
Really what it's modeled around.
That's why.
And then you just know that, okay, if I have a greater expected value of more than 50% on this 1 in 10 of it happening, I should always take that bet. The issue just becomes reality of life of like, do I have enough cash to sustain this, to keep doing it? And technically it will work out if time is infinite, but time is not infinite. So again, it comes back to, do you have enough cash? And do you just not get all the terrible rolls time over time? Yeah, 1 in 10, no, you're 1 in 10, nope, 1 in 10, nope, 1 in 10, nope, 1 in 10, no. And you just, okay, I'm out of time and I'm out of money. But, obviously I don't think game devs just strictly roll the dice entirely.
Yeah.
And some of those bets might not be zeros. Some of those bets might be break even. Some of those might be slightly positive. But some of them will maybe be near complete zeros. But I'm looking at the 1 in 10 that is going to pay for everything else and then some, just like the VCs. And I would just also feel like it's an unfair advantage. Now, I have to prefix this because I don't want people to repeat the same pattern, because there's something to be said about doing a game and not just jumping ship every 3 months onto a new idea.
Right,
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying ship your games, but I think if you can ship more games than one large game, I think there is some advantage to that, because every cycle of releasing, I'm learning something new. Like Orebreaker, which hasn't released, but because we did that game, I learned the leverage and advantages of festivals. Here's a game that we just 3.5 weeks kind of yelled at, said, next fest is coming up. We have these games. We'd like to release this game. Oh, there's Bullet Festivals. Do you think we can fit in there? I don't know. We did. And then it ended up being 2,000 wish lists just from the festival on something that we had put together in less than a month and wasn't even really polished to what should have been in that festival or even at Next Fest. But it was experiment. And we got a data point out of that being these festival things are probably stuff that we should pay more attention to. And maybe we plan a development of a game around these festivals, right? In the next month, Steam should probably release the next half in 2027 of the festivals. And that's enough lead time for at least myself to go and look and say, hey, in 8-ish to 12 months, what are the festivals out there? And I can definitely make games around that. and it just feels like a leg up because it, even if it's 2,000 wish list, okay, but it's 2,000 wish list more than the idea that I just like start tomorrow that doesn't have a festival. So unless I take a different approach, whether it's you don't build a game, you make the short form content to try and validate to not even make the game, or I don't know, I go on gut instincts, or I go what playtesters are said, or I find a game that I've already seen doing well. Yeah, I just feel like the quicker I can get through the cycle end to end, the better.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, I think I'm coming to a similar realization, even just from getting more skills, that I want to look at itch kind of as I think what you're looking at is Steam, right? Like you have the infrastructure, you're a full-time dev, you have a lot more time, which is it's a big factor in all of this, where you can afford to try to release something on Steam and go through the whole marketing cycle, do all of that. But I just don't have the time, and it's much easier for me to release something on itch. And so I'm doing the same thing. It's like if I just scale back my expectations, but I go, if I could make, we'll call it $500 to $1,000 on itch for a game, and I can make it within a reasonable amount of time, well, if that happens and I can get consistent with that, that allows me to then maybe take one of those games to Steam. But I also recognize that getting a game to itch, what I'm aiming for, the kind of players there, the experience, that's going to be very different. And so I also want to find a way that I could generate that time to get something out onto Steam and go through the full cycle. So that way I'm kind of practicing these two mindsets of how do I just get something out there that's quick, that is fun, that I'm building up all these skills, the frameworks maybe that I'll need to do like UI, multiplayer, controller support, whatever. And then I say, okay, well now I have enough that I could do this, maybe this kind of game. And this particular one seemed like it did really well on itch. Let me now bring that to Steam, and I've already made $500 from it, so I could take that $100 and use that to pay for the app fee. So, for me, where my time is the cost that I'm paying, but it's not something I have to put out in terms of additional cost. And then if I'm going and getting asset packs or something like that to help with the development costs, maybe that's there. And eventually when I'm selling games on Steam, if I can then take that and then start to make some sales, maybe that leads to the point when I can start paying for a commission of a better capsule, or for music, or for art from someone to make it, and make something that stands out more than just something that's going to be at a different price point. But like it allowed me at least to step into this space where I feel like there's room for improvement and something to work toward that's a lot more close to me, while I can still release multiple games without having to go through the whole development cycle every single time, because I suspect that would be slower for me, again, because I'm much more time constrained. But maybe if I was full-time, I would feel differently about it.
Lot to unpack.
Yeah.
There's things I agree and don't agree with.
Okay, let's start with what you don't agree, because I think for the most part, we generally tend to agree. So what do you don't agree with there?
I think if you're willing to put it on itch, I would just eat the $100 and put it on Steam anyways.
Really?
Not for the chance of it, like, just in case it blows up.
Yeah,
No.
Agreed, yeah.
Actually, to go through the cycle of releasing, even if you don't do a major marketing thing, so that when you are like, hey, I got a game that has traction, or this is a game that I have the time to put in, you're not for the first time going, how do I do Steam depots, and what's this talk about? And how do I set the price, or what am I doing here? Or, I didn't know that releasing, there's like a cooldown after my discount has started of 30 days. Like, that's why I said, like, the quicker you can get through the end to end, it's helpful, not just on successful games that you think are viable, but just getting through the first time of understanding, like, okay, it's different if like $100 is literally the difference of like paying rent or not paying rent, or you're in a country where like that $100 is going to be like significant impact of life.
Yes.
But like, you live in North America. I'm looking at the couch. I'm like, listen, you could sell the couch.
Wait, how do you know this isn't just my whole home right here? Like, this is it. I just right outside.
I saw a door open over there.
Yeah, it's the street on the other side. All right, fair enough. For my situation, yes, I probably can afford that. It may not be everybody, but...
And it will give you the experience of just walking through the process and understanding. I mean, you could list the game free to play. And no one plays it at all. No one plays it at all. You're at the $100. If some people play it, you're like, yeah, but I didn't make any money. Okay, how many people played it though?
Sure.
Because now you have a way of accessing whoever played that free to play game. They install it. Guess what? You make a community hub post. That shows up on anyone who has that game installed. on their Steam client feed. So when you do have a game that looks commercially viable and you make a cross promotional post, guess what? Some set of those users are going to read that and maybe go wishlist your game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just think that's worth the $100. One, to learn how to do it, and two, just like there's some validation having a game. And I know I'm also equally against it because I'm like, there's so much slop that gets posted every day, and I'm kind of just encouraging you to do the same of like, just take a game that's maybe not ready and slap it on there. But you got to do it at some point, and I would rather be prepared than the spot where you're like, oh my god, I actually have a game. The second part is, let's say the game does do well, and you do list on itch, but you don't have the page up.
Yes.
You did lose a marketing beat opportunity. It doesn't mean the game's dead. The example I can give is the creators of Gambler's Table was on Scope Creeper, and they talked about their game, them not having the page up, and it blew up on Reddit. They had just the itch demo, and I think they had like 50,000 visits or plays, maybe it was, on itch that they just totally missed out, and they thought they had lost their opportunity. They came back, they updated the content, they had the Steam page up, and they're able to capture a bunch during that. But I'm like, I always worry a little bit that, like, yeah, you do just never know. Like, don't put your hopes and dreams on like, well, if we do it this, maybe we'll wake up tomorrow and have 10,000 wish lists. No, but equally, you have to realize it's not a 0 percentile. Like, if you happen to have a good game that you do feel confident enough putting on itch because you think, it's good enough, I'm getting good feedback with even just your playtest, your friends, the Discord. It's like, well, why would you not just spend the $100? Your downside. Your loss function is $100, and once and secondly, the first thing you do is actually not a $100 loss because it's a learning of how to do it. You're just paying a $100 course of learning how to use Steam. The second time, okay, then it's a $100 loss because you've already learned how to do it. But the first time is just get it out, because there's a lot of nuance in doing that. Like, how do I set the build live? How do I make a playtest? How do I make a demo? What do you mean when I make the demo? I have to email people to notify them. Like, you don't want this when you have something that looks viable and kind of trying to figure it out then. You much rather be in the calm state of being like, oh, I know exactly how to request my keys. I know exactly how to set up the playtest. I know how to promote the build once I upload on Steam. I know how to roll back a build in case I accidentally break the release. Like,
yeah, that's true. There's a lot of like life cycle stuff that, because I have released a game on Steam, and going through it, it's super true, where I was like, oh, how do I get keys? What is the difference between the release key and like a demo key and all these other things?
I actually forgot you had.
Yeah.
Because I played the game.
You did play the game, and you came in immediately and were like, this is a novice level menu. Like, I know from the menu right away that this is a first time dev, which is true. And it's like one of the things in my back of my mind, but that's not what we're talking about. But going through it, even getting it to you and being able to distribute it very easily, I do feel, especially if you're making a 3D game, it's easier to get people to download something on Steam because you've paid the $100, you're invested, Steam has approved the page. There's a lot more hoops to jump through than just being able to throw something up on itch. And I'm really torn because I definitely get what you're saying. I think I have two questions in my mind. Maybe it's a question and one concern. The concern that I have is I'm always thinking about, well, is this a brand risk to me where people start to associate my work with something that's low quality or something that I don't finish? There's examples of devs who go both ways. I would imagine where they do one game and then they never have anything again. They have other devs where it's like, oh, you look in the reviews and they're like, this dev is known for XYZ. I think Palworld went through this, right? When they had their game, it was like their games never leave early access, and that was something that's part of their brand. The other dev I'm thinking of is Gagamfe, who did Shelldiver. And if you go back through their whole catalog, hits and misses, and Shelldiver did very, very well, but I don't think anybody's talking about Wizard. I played it, and it is a very rough game, but it was necessary to go through there. So it's like, I don't know which one I'm going to fall into, and I hope
you can hide that.
You can.
That's the thing. You don't have to mark them on the creator page. And actually, I'm pretty sure even the developer and publisher can be custom fields. You could literally, I think, put the developer as like, "Hello, it's Sunday" or whatever. And it doesn't have to link over. You'll just lose the followers then, I believe.
Yeah. Monday morning.
But if it's
breakfast.
a dead game, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, I always tell people it's a good problem to have. Like, tarnish what brand? There is no brand right now.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's going to remember you, Connor. And not in a mean way, like, oh, people are going to remember me. Like, I go to Godot and GDC, and there's like, I'd say 95% of the people, maybe Godot, there's like 80% of the people, still have zero idea. I've never even heard of a game about feeding black hole.
Wow.
But it's sold hundreds of thousands of copies. And I'm a pretty vocal person in the game dev space where it's like, I've been on enough podcasts, you've probably heard some controversial take I've said. So if you have a game that sells even 10,000 copies, the likelihood that you bump into someone who, one, knows the game, or two, has played the game, or even associates you to that brand, pretty much zero.
Yeah. So then here's the second question that I had, because there's something we're not talking about, which is when you reach $1,000 in I don't know if it's revenue or profit for Steam, you actually get
it's gross revenue.
So gross revenue, you get your $100 back. It's more of a deposit, and you get it back. So let's forget the whole idea of, oh, you're just adding slop, because I think Steam is a marketplace at the end of the day. There's algorithms in place. If you have a good game, you're going to cut through the noise. There's ways to get around it, right? So that's not really, that exists, but we don't care. The $100 can be maybe you just are kind of sensitive about it. If I'm testing all these games, it's going to be an issue. But what are your thoughts if I were to ask you the question, could any game make $1,000 in gross revenue? What would you say? Like, is there a way for any game idea to find a way to make $1,000 to get the $100 back?
Yeah. Of quality? Yeah.
Okay. Maybe it doesn't start out as quality, but even if they could refine it, like, it seems like if there's a will, there's a way. If you feel like,
I mean, you can't take 10 minutes in like Godot, Unity, or Unreal.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah. Slap
on the tutorial thing and expect that to make $1,000. But I think if you're spending, first time game dev, it's probably gonna be like 6 months plus to have a game that has really chance to do that. Outside some very exception, like someone did Friend Slop, it was their first game, it was literally like 5 months. It ends up being like a mini peak type of game where it's like, oh, just clicked with content creators and it just blew up. $1,000 is a good goal. I know the stats say differently, but again, the stats also include just tutorial uploads to say you did your game, and straight like
banana
AI shovelware of companies A/B testing. Which is just put it up and see what the conversion was on the capsule in the game, and if it does good enough, actually build the real game then.
Wow. That's so lame. So you're saying that happens, or at least that there's some amount of A/B testing that even if we're not doing that as indie devs, real companies are doing this as a method to test the marketplace. They're using Steam essentially the way that we might look at itch for playtesters and things like that.
There was a publisher at one point who had over 30 games, in quotes. There are 30 store pages. They had no intentions of shipping these games. There was no game. They were just A/B testing the market to see what could work. And then they would just do these, like 30 at a time, and they'd pick the top, whatever, 3, and move forward with making an actual demo. And then they would just repeat this cycle. And my understanding is at some point Steam kind of caught on and went up to them and was like, hey, we consider this abuse of not delivering to the player base.
Yeah.
And if you keep doing it, we'll just shut down your account. Now, that doesn't mean Steam's going to show up, guys, if you make a game that you intend to build and you never ship it, that they're just going to come after you.
Right.
I mean, if you're actively trying to abuse the system of never delivering on a game, and you're making tons of these, Steam is kind of incentivized to slap you on the wrist and say stop, because you're breaking the consumer, the user base trust.
Right.
You're wish listing, you're spending time and energy filtering through these. You find a game, you wish list it with the intent of maybe buying it, but the creator has zero intent. Not life got in the way or they ran out of time.
Yeah.
They just have zero intent.
Yeah. So kind of what we're outlining is if you're going in with good intentions, you want to make this game, you're committed to at least doing your best, and you make something that's bad. I made Puzzle Milk Tea, it didn't do too well. But
I told you I think that game could have been something all right.
For sure, for sure. We'll get back to that in a second. But like that's okay, right? If you make bad games, that's okay because your intentions are good and your volume is probably much lower. But if you're doing anything that's actively making Steam a worse marketplace or lowering the value for everybody else, like if 100 publishers were doing what that one were doing, suddenly you have like 300 games that are coming out, and it really changes the platform and warps it. So it's like there's a big difference between the two. Just getting back to what I was saying about Puzzle Milk Tea, though, it seems like if I wanted to put this to the test, I would want to run that experiment myself and say, what would I need to do to get Puzzle Milk Tea to $1,000, and not to make it a big hit like, oh, I'm going to make $1 million with this, but maybe to go through the exercise of understanding how much polish do I need to add? Do I need to change the store page? Do I have to get new assets? Do I have to redo my capsule? Some of those things, and just go through that exercise of thinking of that, more so to give it a chance and say, it would probably be important for me to do this, because if I can do it with one game, it's likely that I could do that for other games, and then suddenly I can just put something up on Steam. I can feel comfortable making it, using it for distribution, take advantage of Steamworks and all those Steam APIs that we have access to. Suddenly I can do multiplayer games for peer-to-peer and stuff like that. That would be very appealing to me, but I think because I haven't done that yet, it feels like it's really, really far away. But if you believe in me, or you believe in the developers out there, then maybe there's something, if you, again, have the time for it and want to sink that in to take it a little bit more seriously up to the next level.
Let me answer it this way. Here's what I would do if I had to save, in quotes, your game.
Okay. Puzzle Milk Tea.
V2 the game, relaunch.
Okay.
Puzzle Milk Tea.
Puzzle Milk Tea, the relaunch.
I don't know if this is exactly in order. I'll say as one, but I don't mean in this exact order. One, you need like a dedicated player base of like those types of games. Whether it's the theme, like they just fall in love with, oh, the milk tea, oh, that's so cute. Or they like the mechanic of shooting kind of in match 3, match bubble type of collapse games. Why? Because a lot of the devs I see that like have even decent games, I'm like, how long did it take you to hit your first 10 reviews? And I'm like, my rule is like, if it's not sub 24 hours, really bad. If it's not sub 12 hours, I'm like, you probably should have spent more time with your community. Like, Black Hole, yes, was a huge game, but that was like sub 1 hour we had the 10 reviews.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
So the closer I tell people you can get to that, the better. Why? Because it means like you're going to have a really tight-knit audience that you built up, or a tight-knit community that are supporting you. This is also going to be helpful with playtesting. Because if you can get these 10 to 20 people, we'll say 20 because half of them are going to tell you they're going to do it, they're not actually going to do it, they forget, whatever, life happens. So 20 people is what you're really looking for, that are like diehard Tri fans of Milk Tea or whatever type of this game is, and probably have them in a Discord. They're going to be your playtesters. That's now going to give you a good baseline of recordings,
you're right.
Feedback. How long are they engaging for your game? They're not really playing past 20 minutes. They're not saying stuff like, I just sent a playtest of Mind Dwarfs to Andy on the first iteration, and he was like, I'm actually legitly angry at you. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I fucked up. It's a terrible game. It's a terrible like pacing. He's like, I'm angry because I thought there would be more content and you stopped me and I want more. Like, I don't want to stop playing. And I'm like, great. And you need those types of players.
Yes.
So, and once you have those, then we're talking about how do we get them to this 2-hour mark? Let's start first with 30. So it's like, is the onboarding good? Do they understand the controls? Do they have a reason? Do they have a progression? Do they have unlocks? Do they have something that they're trying to attain? Like, whatever your mechanic, you're hooked to keep them coming and wanting to play again, at least for this particular game, because it's kind of like a round-based game. Or it's like the progression of unlocking, making them feel powerful. The first time they play, they die, but the first time they die, why do they play it the second time? They've already seen the game. No. When they finish the first round and lose, that's where you slap them with the unlock electric shooty bubble whatever gun. And they're like, well, this time it's going to be different now. Now I won't lose.
Yeah.
And if you do that cycle, then I think these games can pretty much always lock $1,000 because
Yeah.
if we're talking about, at 200 copies at $5, you're hit 1,000 gross. And if you can hit 10 reviews in, let's say, less than 12 hours of when you launch your game, you're on discovery queue, so some subset of that will come. You already know that you got 10 copies sold on your group that said they will buy and got you the 10 reviews. So now you're actually looking at like 190 copies, and you're on discovery queue. How many moves on that? And then, like, obviously, if you do basic marketing of just like who plays these types of games, you don't need major content creators for 190 copies to be sold.
Yeah.
Even a content creator who is like small, 1,000K subs could do 400 views. That could be 20, 30 copies sold there. Like, it's different if we're talking about making it sustainable, profitable for you.
Yes, right.
But if you're just talking about making $1,000 game as like a base, then yes, I think it's very doable for many people.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's guaranteed.
Yes, yeah,
I'm just
sure.
saying I think it's very attainable.
Someone's going to go out there and upload the tutorial and be like, Corey's wrong. Doherty said this and he was wrong. So we'll
I'd
give
say,
you that room.
what did they do with the tutorial to get the 20 people to say yes then? They bribe them?
Yeah. I mean, I really like that idea. I mean, it's very clear. It's like, find your 20 core players, start to get on discovery queue, and do this all genuinely. It's like, obviously don't, pay these people and then you're out even more. Just like naturally go and do it, have good intentions, be proud of your game, right? And keep working toward it. And again, for me, it's mostly about showing the steps along the way that I can do it and building up that confidence, because I'm going to be getting skills. I'm going to be getting the audience, because then those 20 people, the next time I make a game, maybe I have 40 people to start off with, right? And it becomes much easier. And it's like a compounding type of situation. The funny two things, and then I think we'll need to get to our viewer question, would be the way Aramis felt about Mining and Dwarves. Just know that that's how I feel about Hexagod every single time there's an update. So I'm the one Hexagod player who's like, I want more. But I'm starting to lose hope. But I'm happy with how the game is. It has brought me joy. And then the second one would really be there's a studio called Jestercraft. I think he's a game designer, and he's doing 24 games in 24 months. And he just had his game Buttons Up 2 come out, and then he was kind of showing some of that as well. And it seems like there's, again, other people who are trying the strategy out and seeing improvement over time. And it might be one of those things where I just got to do it too, and not worry about setting my sights toward making a living off of game dev immediately, but reaching this smaller milestone of, let me just, $1,000 on Steam. Can I get that? Can I get my 20 core fans? And then keep going that way. Because again, it just feels much more achievable and less daunting to think about, all these things I have to do. And then we get back to what we were saying of make something, get it out there, go through all the hoops, and then understand now how you get back to fun, satisfying, and all these other kind of like high level concepts that we're covering. It's a good way to sum it up.
I'm sure with the game that you're doing now, you will finish that and you'll look back at the Bubble Tea game, or what was it?
Puzzle Milk Tea
game? Puzzle Milk Tea. And kind of you'll be like, what was I thinking? I should do ABC. And that's when you can just experiment and go do ABC.
Yeah. It really is a game that I think about all the time, and I'm like, I know it's not the right time for me to go back to it quite yet, but I want to. It'll have been out for, I think, a year now. And so it would be really cool to go back. And for the people who bought it, because I think I have sold it to strangers, I would love to just delight those players and say, hey, here's an update. Thank you for supporting me when it was early. Here's some new content update, and here's the direction of the game. So I think I have upskilled a lot as a developer, but we'll stay tuned and maybe follow that story. But to wrap up today's episode, we take viewer questions from all of you. Send it wherever you can find us, and we'll field it. But today we have a question from Vanilla Godzilla. From shoutouts to the Dream Dev podcast Discord and our accountability group. Thanks Blake for getting that going. But we have, what makes a good trailer for a game? I've thought that showing what the game is / what it's about is important to set customer expectations. I've also thought about selling the fantasy. Are there any good and bad examples of trailers on Steam? While you're thinking, Corey, I'll just share that one of the ones that I liked is How Many Dudes. That's coming out later this week, Butterscotch Shenanigans. And when I watched that one, it's so very much them. The trailer, the way it all looks, the way they presented it, and all their shorts and everything, it's just kind of in their voice. And I love how they make their games funny. And it's like, it's the absurdity of how many dudes would it take to blah, blah, blah. And then like just that premise alone, I think they're a really good studio to watch for some of these things. And it's not like overly designed, overly serious. It's just very much them, and I think it works. So that would be like my vote. But I don't know what comes to your mind for some of what Vanilla Godzilla was asking and talking about.
That's the answer. I would say the implementation for it to get there. I think people don't spend enough time doing the exercises of going through. Like, I check the store page every single day. It's like I check the front page, I check the personal calendars, I check the up and coming, I check the new and trending. I'm looking at what's the feature festival, what's the games that are top of the feature festivals. And it's not because I'm just saying, oh, what sells? It's like, why is that working? And like, am I missing a genre play here? Am I missing a trailer play? Am I missing like, what are they doing that's so special? Like, and it's very easy to just say, oh, it's just a big game. But every game's not a big game at the start. Like the How Many Dudes example is, you know, they were having a little bit of a struggle traction early on if you listen to their story. And it wasn't until they dropped the demo on like December 17th that the game really took off. And now there's a question of why. One, yes, I think they had a very straightforward trailer that had this open-ended curiosity question like, oh, I wonder how many dudes. Like, do you think you could take 1v1 a gorilla? And then it's like 10% of guys do think they, and you're like, that's kind of crazy. Like, what? I think that thing would tear me in half instantly.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't think me and you combined even have a chance at all. It's 0% still. Like,
yeah.
So I would just say try and exhort, like try and make a mental note about like catching yourself as a consumer. Like there's times when I'm on the store and I buy something and I'm like, okay, but why did I buy this? And then like backtracking, it's like, what got me? Was it the trailer? Was it the capsule? Was it a description? Was it both? Like, was I scrolled down and it was a review that I read that solidified my thinking of like, oh, it's not what I thought. It's this. Because those are things as, you know, as a game dev, when you're making your page, you can attack. Like the little border thing, if you catch yourself being like, damn, I tend to click on those capsules that have border, probably means you might want to do that. Like maybe it's not working for you, but like it's trying to find that subconscious thing that's getting you as a consumer to do it. Because then you'll just kind of over time realize, oh, trailers that do ABC tend to do pretty well.
Yep. And it's just to remember that we are players, or hopefully we're all players too. We have our tastes, we have our preferences, and when you take the time to just kind of explore and go one level deeper and say, oh, I am, like we just did at the beginning, where you're like, oh, it's because it's bigger. It's literally just bigger on the page and literally just has that border. You were more drawn to those ones. With these other games, you're like, oh, I actually know this one, but it was buried, right? We're players too, we're people. And so when we tap into that and are reflective, we can kind of learn, whether it's looking at the trailers or even playing a game. That's why we want to dive into it. And also I'm going to talk about these things too, because we hope that the more that these ideas get out there, the more we can remind all developers that we should be players first. And we're just here to have fun. We're here to make games, and it doesn't have to be all like business all the time. It's just, let's just have some fun, right?
I'm actually going to go play How Many Dudes right now.
Yeah?
For real. I already bought it. That's my plan right after we finish this.
That's awesome. Well, I think we're good to wrap it there. I won't take any more of your time. So, Corey, if the people wanted to follow you anywhere, where's the best place to do that?
On YouTube. We'll link it.
On YouTube? Okay, great.
The collab channel.
And then for me, if you want to follow any of my work, SundayBrunchStudios.com. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again next week. See ya.
I wasn't angry enough, I guess.